Hari Hari. So remember, if you have any questions, to put them in the comment section or otherwise attend a satsang, of course. Everyone is welcome. If you are in the Massachusetts, Northborough area. Today's topic are the 6 enemies of life. From Bhagavad Gita chapter 1, verses 37 and 38. Arjuna says, excuse me, O Janardana, although these men, their hearts overtaken by greed, see no fault in killing one's family or quarreling with friends, why should we, who can see the crime in destroying a family, engage in these acts of sin? At Satsang 21 or 22, we talked about sin. And we defined what sin is, pap, as opposed to punya, piety. So that has been clarified. Arjuna brings up the issue of greed, lobha. The Puranas and the Itihasas describe 6 enemies of the human being. These 6 enemies, they do not plague the animal species. They are unique to the human being. Let me rephrase that. Animals and various other species of life may exhibit these 6 enemies. They may seem to manifest in the lives of other species. But their unique manifestation in the human species is that the human species is the only species which has the capacity to stop, has the capacity not to be overcome by these 6 enemies. Other species of life do not have this capacity. These 6 enemies are called the Arishadvargas. They are Kam, Krodh, Lobha, Moha, Mada, and Matsarya. Lust, anger, greed, delusion, arrogance, and envy. So while these may manifest, greed, anger, and so on, in other animal species, they are driven by instinct, born of their material body. So the manifestation of these Arishadvargas in other species is largely or entirely inconsequential because they are being governed by the modes of material nature. They are governed by Prakriti. The human being is the only species which has the ability to arrest the march and manifestation of the Arishadvargas in their life. Human beings can stop it. Let's explore how. First, let's get a clear understanding of what the Arishadvargas are. Kama, lust. This is essentially desire. It is the desire or the impetus of the senses to engage with the sense objects. That's kama. The tongue wanting to taste something nice. That is the intrinsic nature of the tongue. If the tongue is not seeking to taste something nice, then the tongue is diseased. The body is diseased. So the fact that we have a material body and material senses, healthy, functioning material senses, there will be desire. Desire, kama, oftentimes translated as lust, but the English word lust carries with it sexual connotations. Kama is much more than that. It's desire. It's the senses seeking out and trying to engage with the sense objects. Desire. And we see it manifests or has three parts. There is the feeling, the initial impetus for the tongue to taste something nice. And we see the baby wants to taste something nice and puts everything in its mouth to eat it, to taste it, to understand it. So there's a feeling. Then there's thinking. If the experience was a pleasurable one, then we start to think about that pleasure. And as we think about it, as we contemplate it, as we know, or as we will know from the second chapter, from contemplation comes attachment. So as we contemplate the nice taste that we had, the nice experience that we had of the tongue interacting with the sense objects, those attachments develop from our thinking. Then there's willing. We become, as those attachments become stronger, we become willing to do whatever is necessary to once again experience our tongue engaging with the idli sambar, for the senses to engage in their objects. So these are the three parts of kama, desire. The initial feeling, then the experience of that feeling. If it was a good one, we think about it, become attached. The stronger the attachment becomes, then we're willing to do what is necessary in order to get that which we now strongly desire. Kama. The second of the six enemies, the second of the Rishidvargas, is Krodh. Krodh is very simple. It is when our attachments are unfulfilled. We cannot fulfill our attachments. Something is getting in the way. There is an obstacle. Or we obtain the objects of our attachments and they're taken away from us. We lose that to which we are attached and we become angry. Or we gain our attachments and there are unforeseen consequences to obtaining the attachment and an anger results. We wanted a BMW, not considering the insurance and the taxes involved. We are hit with an insurance bill and we become angry. Unintended consequences for fulfilling and satisfying our attachments or not being able to satisfy our attachments. These are the reasons why we are driven to anger. Anger, this is the equation, if you will. Anger is an attachment revealed. That's all. Without an attachment, there cannot be anger. Anger is simply the manifestation, the revelation, the uncovering of an attachment. So we have kam, desire, krodh, anger, lobha. Lobha means greed. So we have these desires. We want the tongue to engage with the sense objects. If we fulfill that desire, we obtain our idli sambar. Sorry, that's a particular Indian preparation of which I am obviously quite fond. Pizza, for those of you who, everyone worldwide knows what a pizza is. So let's stick with that. So the tongue interacts, has a pizza, pleasurable experience, but you can only eat so much pizza. The tongue is satisfied, the belly is full, you no longer need the pizza. You share it if you haven't already done so, or you may save it for later, which is perfectly fine. The point is that the senses have been satisfied. The tongue has been sated. So there is no longer a drive for the senses to connect with the sense object. There's no more the impetus for the tongue to connect with the pizza. It's gone. It's sated. Temporarily, yes. That's perfectly fine. But it is indeed satisfied. It is indeed sated. The drive, the impetus, is no longer there. That's on the level of kama, desire. Satisfy it, goes away temporarily. May come back, but it's at least satisfied temporarily. Lobha is different. Lobha is beyond mere satisfaction of the senses. Lobha, greed, is when we accumulate for the sake of accumulation. It is to possess for the sake of possessing. Satisfaction of the senses has long been taken care of. We accumulate more than we could possibly ever need for the satisfaction of our senses. The senses, the drive of the senses, are no longer an issue. The senses are actually very simple. Very quickly the senses can be satisfied. Temporarily, granted, but they can quite easily be satisfied. It is lobha, this mentality of accumulation itself, that is a completely different energy entirely. To possess for the sake of possession, that is lobha. Has nothing to do with the satisfaction, the satiation of the senses. That is lobha. Kam, krodh, lobha, moha. Moha means delusion. We begin to think that the satisfaction of my senses, the accumulation for the sake of accumulation, is my inalienable right. I deserve to have my senses satiated. I deserve to possess for the sake of possession. I deserve to accumulate. This mentality is one of egocentricity, entitlement. We feel entitled that the world, individuals, friends, family, the man walking on the street, have to give way to what I want, my desires. I am entitled to possess for the sake of possession. I am entitled to accumulate for the sake of accumulation. I am entitled to have my senses satisfied, no matter the cost, to anyone else, anything else, so on and so forth. That is a delusional mentality. Moha. So, kam, krodh, lobha, moha, mada. Mada can very simply be described as madness. The perfect word that describes mada is egomaniac. This is when, in the previous, there was moha, right? Moha means delusion. You have a feeling of entitlement. You expect everything to be done for you, regardless and well beyond the satiation of your senses, possessing well beyond your needs, accumulating well beyond what is required. You feel entitled, and you expect everyone to acquiesce. Mada is different. In mada, The egomaniac demands it, demands that everyone acquiesce to the satisfaction of their senses. Everyone must acquiesce to their demands to possess. Everyone must organize their lives, organize the world, organize every situation to satisfy the senses of that egomaniac, to satisfy the desire to possess by that egomaniac. They demand it. No longer expect. You can expect something, not get it, be upset, throw a temper tantrum. That's moha. Mada, the egomaniac, in Sanskrit they call it madness. This madness, this egomaniacal madness, that individual demands it. It's not enough for, it's unacceptable that we do not acquiesce to their demands. Unacceptable. They are offended. How dare you not do what I want when I want it? How dare you? They demand. Kam, Krodh, Lobha, Moha, Mada, and finally the sixth one, Matsarya. Envy. This is where violence is born. Not only do we demand that all situations suit our desires, not only do we demand that all people rearrange their lives and their reality for our desires, but we go out of our way to prevent, this is envy, this is matsarya, we go out of our way to prevent other individuals satisfying their senses. The person in matsarya cannot stand to see another person happy. And then they go out of their way to bring distress upon the other person. They cannot abide by the happiness, the joy of another person. They cannot abide that another person is having their desires fulfilled. So they act from a place of envy. And violence is born. How dare you have pleasure? How dare you gain satisfaction? How dare you gain gratification without my consent, without my permission? How dare you? That is Matsarya. So these six enemies, these Arishadvargas, they steal happiness, meaning, satisfaction from our life. If we are controlled and susceptible to the control of the Arishadvargas, we are never able to live in peace and satisfaction and in gratitude. We're never able to live in our own reality and live up to our full potential based on our own reality. We are constantly hankering, constantly reaching, causing harm to others and to ourselves as we are being buffeted, beaten, and dragged one way or the other by the Arishadvargas. So Arjuna is saying in this verse, my dear Krishna, the Duryodhans of the world, our enemies, may be completely under the control of the Arishadvargas. This does not mean that we should similarly act. The Arishadvargas exist as a manifestation of our conditioning. Allow me to explain. The Irishadwargas, to overcome the Irishadwargas, actually that's the wrong word. We're not trying to overcome the Irishadwargas. The Irishadwargas are simply energy. The Irishadwargas are Prakriti, Sattva Guna, Raja Guna, Tamaguna. These are the Irishadwargas. Sattva Guna, the English translations are terrible, but we'll use them for this presentation. Sattva Guna is goodness. Raja Guna is passion. Tamaguna is ignorance. So Prakriti is divided into these three, Sattva, Rajas, and Tamas. I will use the Sanskrit. It's just much better, and the more you become familiar with Vedic spirituality, it's best to use the Sanskrit because the definitions are much more nuanced, also broad, and we will come up with hearing them again and again. So Sattva, Rajas, and Tamas. Prakriti, material energy, is divided into these three. Everything you see, food, music, color, texture, species of life, are all manifestations of a mixture of these three energies. Prakriti. The Irishadwargas are born of these three energies. The six enemies are born of these three enemies, these three energies. When Sattva, Rajas, and Tamas comes in contact with our conditioned ahankar, the Irishadwargas manifest. The Irishadwargas, the six enemies, lust, anger, greed, so on and so forth. We should not try to, I should not be angry. I should not be this. I should not be that. I should not be envious. I should not be egomaniacal. I should not be entitled. I should not have desires. That's another one. I should not have desires. No. The Irishadwargas are manifestations of energy coming in contact with ahankar. Prakriti, energy, material energy, Sattva, Rajas, and Tamas. Prakriti plus ahankar equals Irishadwargas. They become manifest. Ahankar is our ego. Our false identity. Our belief that we are human beings trying to have a spiritual experience. That's an erroneous belief. We are not human beings trying to have a spiritual experience. We are spiritual beings having a human experience. Ahankar, which literally means aham, I, kar, do. Ahankar, I do, is a false identification with our material reality, our material body, our material mind, intelligence, and so forth. Ahankar is that misidentification. So what happens? Ahankar is the identity necessary for the spirit being to interact in a world of matter. How does a spirit being interact in a world of matter? The necessary adapter, if you will, is ahankar. Otherwise, a spirit being has no way to interact and manipulate matter. Ahankar is necessary. But ahankar, and this is why I said a conditioned and impure ahankar, because actually we're also not trying to rid ourselves of ahankar. Some spiritualists, some spiritual teachings will say this. We're trying to dissolve the ego. If you dissolve the ego, you dissolve your ability to function in material nature. No, we're not trying to dissolve ego. We're not trying to dissolve ahankar. What we're trying to do is make sure that ahankar is pure. Ahankar is transparent. Like a pane of glass. Ahankar is to be transparent like a pane of glass. If ahankar is transparent, then the nature of our soul shines through ahankar and manifests in the material world. But if that pane of glass, that ahankar, is cluttered, then our spiritual nature, Satchit Ananda, our spiritual qualities, our spiritual identity will not be able to shine through. You try to shine light through a pane of glass that is covered in green paint, green light will filter through. So when material nature encounters our ahankar, which is conditioned, you put the two together, our conditioned ahankar, the pane of glass that is dirty, colored, and you add prakriti, what manifests are the elucidates, depending on the mixture of the prakriti, sattva, rajas, tamas. The various mixtures, we're going to get various manifestations. Matsarya, kam, krodh, mada, depending on the various mixtures of triguna and the types of conditioning of our ahankar. So the question is not to focus on the elucidates. The elucidates are just a manifestation of prakriti energy encountering conditioned ahankar. So don't worry about the elucidates. Oh, I shouldn't be angry, I shouldn't be this. That's irrelevant. Don't focus on material nature. Material nature is essential to the existence of the reality in which we find ourselves. So don't focus on material nature. What should we focus on? Ahankar. Why is our ahankar dirty? What is obscuring the ahankar? Preventing our spiritual selves to manifest in the world. That dirt called attachments. Attachments are what condition the ahankar. Attachments are what clutter, dirty that pane of glass. And we have so many attachments stuck to this pane of glass. So this attachments all over our ahankar. Now our ahankar encounters material nature in three facets, sattva, rajas, and tamas. And what do you get? Arishadvargas. So we have to clean our ahankar of attachments. How? How do we clean the ahankar of attachments? The practice of detachment. Detachment is how we cleanse the ahankar, by becoming detached. Detachment is such a powerful word in spiritual circles. It's also one of the most feared words in spiritual circles because it's not properly explained. We think detachment is to give up that which we may want, that which we prefer. Detachment is not about giving up a damn thing in terms of our desires. Bear with me, because yes, there is a curveball coming. But detachment is not what we think it is. We think detachment means to become callous, to become insensitive, to become uncaring, to essentially be a stone in the world. That's how we think of detachment. That is not detachment. The Puranas are full, chock full of stories of persons, saints, kings, princesses who were detached and yet were full or possessed all kinds of opulences, material opulences, but were still detached from the world. So detachment is not about giving up desires, giving up the things that we want. Detachment simply means it's a belief, just like an attachment is a belief. Attachment is the belief that these things outside of myself are the source of my gratification, are the source of my happiness. It's a belief. It's an erroneous belief. Detachment is the knowledge and the following realization that I am perfectly complete as I am. This is taught in the Upanishads. Om Purnamada Purnamidam Purnat Purnamudachyate. We as Jivatma are perfectly complete beings. We have and possess everything that we need to live, reach, manifest, and exist in our full potentiality. We need nothing outside of ourselves. We need nothing from material nature, from this material reality. We are perfectly complete. That's detachment. At first, this is going to be an intellectual refrain. It's going to be an intellectual exercise. I am perfectly complete. I am perfectly complete. But the more we, even intellectually, if by rote, if necessary, if we can grasp this concept, this idea, I am perfectly complete. I have everything I will ever need to be a perfectly complete being. And nothing can ever be taken away from me to make me incomplete or imperfect. Nothing can be given to me to add to my perfection or to add to my completeness because I am perfectly complete. When we have the realization that we are perfectly complete, we hold no attachments. Attachments fall away. When there is realization, let's practice it right now. You can sit right now and in 5 seconds, okay, I'll give you 30. Bring you to a space where you feel, you realize you exist in your perfect, complete nature. You yearn for, need nothing. And you exist in your perfectly complete nature. We can reach that state in 30 seconds. Now that's the easy part. The hard part is when someone takes or something is taken away from you. Then you realize, oh, I have an attachment. And we cling to that attachment again. So it's all well and good to, for 30 seconds, sit in a yoga studio and experience perfect completeness. And then you go outside and someone has stolen your car and all hell breaks loose because that attachment is there. In that moment, intellectually grasp the concept. Yes, my car is stolen. However, I am still perfectly complete. And your experience of having your car stolen will change on the spot. I promise you. It's not difficult because we are perfectly complete beings. We have just never been reminded of that fact. We've never been taught. The world around us does not want society to recognize that we are perfectly complete, the economy would come to a standstill. A consumer economy, because we all have needs. We all must eat, drink, sleep, and so on and so forth. The needs will go on. But this consumer society that the world economy is built on will come tumbling down because it's based on attachments and the subsequent greed that develops from attachments. If the world is populated with persons who are detached, there would still be a vibrant economy, but it will be based on everyone's needs. Because no one is trying to use attachments to feel complete. They're not trying to use their attachments and things to feel perfect or better about themselves. Why? Because they exist in the reality of knowing I am perfect. There is nothing outside of me that can make me perfect. I am complete. There is nothing outside of me that can make me more complete. So I don't need to go on a shopping spree. I'm not angry if something doesn't turn out the way I would have preferred because I'm not attached to the outcome. I am perfectly complete whether the outcome happens or not, whether I get what I preferred or not. See, preferences don't go away. The only issue is what happens when you don't receive your preferences. If you're attached to your preference and your preference is taken away, you slap someone. If you are detached and you don't receive your preference, you go about your life. You go around, over, under, above, rather than crashing your head through the issue using anger. Don't make the mistake of focusing on anger, envy, jealousy. Don't focus there. That's not where all these things can be dealt with. Rather, focus on ahankar, your belief system, your erroneous identity, or rather your identity with only a small part of yourself. Your physical reality is your reality, absolutely, but it's only part of your reality. You're also a spirit being. Yes, you have a material body. Yes, you have a mind and material senses and an ahankar, absolutely. But you are a spirit being navigating a material reality. So recognize we're also not trying to rid ourselves of ahankar. Ahankar is essential for a spirit being to navigate a world of matter. Ahankar is a material element. Ahankar is a material element. Earth, water, fire, air, ether, mind, intelligence, and ahankar. It's one of the necessary material elements needed for the spirit being to function and interact with the world of matter. It's an element. The problem is that this element has been cluttered with with attachments. So we must clear attachments. That's where the work is. That's where the work is. We must become detached. Detachment does not mean we don't prefer one thing over the other. You can prefer chocolate ice cream to a disgusting banana milkshake. Absolutely. The only point is, don't be attached to the ice cream to the extent that when it's taken away, you throw a temper tantrum. Don't be attached to the extent that if someone brings you a banana milkshake, you throw it in their face. It's not about preferences. It's about whether or not you are attached. If you are attached to your preferences, Arishadwargas will manifest, and you are susceptible to their control. If you are detached to your preferences, whether they come or not, then you are in control of how you experience material nature. The Arishadwargas do not exist. They do not exist. The equation, the chemical reaction is not there. There is nothing for material nature to react to. Material nature reacts to attachments, Arishadwargas manifest. If there are no attachments, material nature is there, but there's no reaction. And that is when the yogi can then use material nature to the benefit of everyone around. The yogi can choose to use what we would call anger in order to better a situation, to prevent perhaps a crime happening, injustice. But you see, the yogi is using anger, whereas the non-yogi is being used by anger. Two completely different things. One is tied to the back of a bucking bronco, has no control, is going to be thrown to the ground, and is going to break its neck. The other person is riding the same bronco and winning the Preakness, for lack of a better example. One is in control, one is not. The person who is attached is going to be thrown to the ground and will end up with a broken neck. The person who is detached will be able to use the very same material energy, to uplift everyone around them. Hari Hari. Any questions, please put in the comments.